right. Looks like we are live. What's up, Facebook? Let me see if I can get my other screen going so I can answer questions. Let's see. All right, we are set up. Okay, I guess I can see questions. I can see someone hops on Zoom. All right, so welcome. Now, you can see me post a lot of information about, health and longevity and things. And I just want to take this time and just, kind of go in detail and talk about what is the process of, longevity? What is the process of living longer, increasing your health span, maximizing your performance and your longevity? What is all that about? And, what's currently being done in the marketplace? And what are some holes that I see that are commonly missing that's actually rendering those programs maybe to be not as effective from a long-term perspective, right? So some of those, we're ingrained for like immediate gratification. And I see that some of those initial hacking things will give you quick wins, but sometimes oftentimes at the long-term expense. So we're going to talk about all that process. And then I'm going to, finish basically talking about, if you're at TNC, how can you join us with the healing house concept and what is the healing house and how that works, right? So let's get started. And, during this time, you can feel free to post a question. And I'm going to see, I'll make sure, in fact, let me change my screen so I can see if I can see those questions as you're coming in. Oh, great. Now we can see. Very high tech here, as you know. All right. So what is longevity and healthcare, right? And so before we get to that, let's talk about what is the current situation, right? What's happening with the world of medicine, healthcare right now? So on one hand, right, we have your traditional medicine, right? You go to your doctor, you get your physical, they draw your blood, and kind of look at the values, right? Your cholesterol, your liver enzymes, what your white blood cells are doing, basically looking at about 20 different values. And so from that data, your doctor will tell you if you're healthy or unhealthy. And what ends up, I'm just thinking algorithms, right? So if you're healthy, it's like, all right, continue what you're doing. If you're unhealthy, then typically if they match it to a drug, right? So if you have high blood pressure, let's take a blood pressure medication. If you have high blood sugar, we take a high blood sugar medication. If you have high cholesterol, let's take a high cholesterol medication. Basically just matching drugs to symptoms. Because I'm assuming your doctor's not sitting down with you and coaching you on why those values are out of balance and what are the lifestyle behaviors to change, right? So you can actually, cure those things and not need drugs, right? I'm assuming that's not happening, right? And so that's on one side, right? That's sort of healthcare. And we'll go back to what I think is broken about that system. On the other side, right, you have all of your Facebook posts and blog posts and, we'll say famous hackers and biohackers and a bunch of tips and tricks, right? And so that's anything from drinking celery juice to taking NAD supplements, that's like in thing right now, to paleo or keto diets, to intermittent fasting, right? So those are sort of the in thing these days. And what I see ends up happening is it's either a bunch of tactical, low downstream things that you're trying to implement. You're searching for like, what's the latest tip? I get asked all the time, like, hey, what's the latest tips and tricks for this and that? And what I see is the strategy isn't even in place, right? So you want to get sort of the overall strategy first, right? And so this is no different than in a business, right? Like, I don't know, if you're like, hey, I want more revenues, it isn't just going to be a bunch of tips and tricks, like use this sales page and use this word on your copy or market here. You want to look at what's the overall strategy, because the strategy governs everything downstream, right? And so to me, it's probably more important to put a good strategy in place than a bunch of awesome tips and tricks from, smart people, right? And so we're going to talk about that. Like, how do you put the ideal strategy in place so the tips and tricks don't become overwhelming. You're not constantly going after the shiny objects, right? Because we see that all the time, right? And so that's that side, right? So now let's go back to healthcare, right? I don't know if you know this actually. If you haven't followed my post, you may not know this, which is when you go to the doctor and they test for 20 different things. What's up, Brian? When they test for 20 different things, those 20 different things are essentially 0.5% of the available data, right? Let me repeat. Your doctor is trying to figure out what's happening inside your body and your overall health with 0.5% of the data. 0.5%, right? Because we can test for about 4,000 different things in your body right now, and a traditional doctor will test for 20. Now, some functional doctors, right? So you have your functional medicine doctors out there, they'll test for more. They may test for a couple hundred things, right? If you're lucky, a couple hundred things. But thousands and thousands of data points are available these days, right? And so what I see happening is in your traditional medicine model, essentially not only are they using not enough data to try to figure you out, there's no process to try to get to the underlying cause of that thing. And I'm sure most of you who are watching, listening to this realize that, right? And so there's that. And then some of you have gone on to concierge medicine. And to me, concierge medicine essentially just 24/7 access to still a broken system, right? It's like having more access to that system that is kind of broken. And so one level up from that would be functional medicine, right? And so typical functional medicine doctors will test for potentially food sensitivities, right? Common. They'll test for possibly deeper hormones. They'll have a better understanding, like why is your thyroid, low or high? Let's look at deeper hormones that make your thyroid hormone. They go deeper. However, they may not be looking at all the data, right? Like how is your bacteria being affected, right? Because we now know the diversity of your bacteria and the mix of bacteria that's in there can basically control everything. Of course, it can control thyroid, hormones, brain function, so many things about our health. Are they looking at genetics, right? Are they looking at your environment, right? We do know that particulate matter, right? The density of dust in your office, in your home, will definitely influence your health dramatically. Like if this is new information to you, just Google, search PM 2.5, right? Particulate matter 2.5, and it's huge, huge predictor of your health that's just not being talked about, right? They're probably not looking at what are your behaviors, right? So what are your thought processes as you're relating, your perception of your work, your family, elements of your life, right? Because obviously if you're perceiving it in a way that is heightening, right, the stress response, then you're going to get a certain aspect of health from that, right? Because that will then, in case you don't know, it will start to adversely affect your gut health. It overstimulates adrenal. Some of you have known about adrenal fatigue, right? So it turns on certain systems that's not meant to be on for long periods of time, right? Because a human, just like all of nature, is designed to be in rhythm, right? Nothing is linear, like nothing at all. And so a lot of doctors, health practitioners, healers will push for linear things. Like you got to keep X, Y, and Z here the whole time, or you got to think and feel X, Y, Z here the whole time. That is just not realistic, and nor is it healthy. And so it goes much deeper than just take this or just run these tests. It's having a very deep understanding of various sciences in order to figure out what is this process. Like if your goal is to live a lot longer than the current lifespan, this is essentially what it takes, right? It'd be amazing if you already lived in one of the blue zones, and since you were born, you were in that environment, then it's not nearly as complex as what I'm saying, right? Because your environment, we're a product of our environment. You would have been born into an environment that isn't, filled with 82,000 plus toxins with less than 300 of, with any safety testing. Like you're not swimming in chemicals and breathing and rubbing on chemicals on a daily basis, right? There's no blue zones like, in America. And so, lots of toxins. Like you weren't born into a constant media that basically says like, you suck unless you buy our stuff, right? That affects our mental aspects. And so, sure, if you were in the blue zones and you lived there your whole life, you know what? Just basically do what everyone else is doing, right? Because that works. But in America, we know what everyone else is doing is working against us. It's why we're 27th in healthcare. We're not in the top, like we're 7th in lifespan of the industrial countries. We're low, one of the lowest actually, right? So, Japan's upper 80s, South Korea is like 92, we're 78. In the last 2 years, lifespan in America has gone down. Like it's actually decreased in the last 2 years. And so in America, you probably don't want to do what everyone else is doing. Right? So let's talk about what is everyone else doing. They're going to the gym, they're trying different diets, typically take some supplements. Like these are the people that are trying. They definitely work a lot. They they think there's some type of answer in some type of diet plan or product, right? They think it's like a thing. And so we know none of that works. We know none of that works for long term, right? Because how many people who are watching this know someone that look like, and they look healthy, right? They're lean, they have low body fat, they eat organic and they're healthy, but yet they have unexplained diagnoses of stuff. And some of them, if you're old enough, you'll see people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They look amazingly healthy and they live healthy lifestyles, but yet they still have a heart attack. They still get cancer, right? And why this is happening? Well, traditional medicine isn't detecting the real things that's able to prevent these, right? And so a great example of this I've been posting a lot is like, cholesterol. Not only are cholesterol medications almost worthless in a way, right? The NNT score, the data on how many people it takes to take a cholesterol med for one person to truly benefit is 103, right? And that means there's like a less than 1% chance that that drug will actually help you. And two, 75% of people who have heart attacks actually have low cholesterol, right? So when your doctor says, hey, your cholesterol's low, it's 130, you're doing great, keep it up, you're actually statistically in the group that's more likely to have a heart attack, right? And mainly we know this because, for example, you can test for the size of the cholesterol versus just simply the density. That will be a better indicator of heart disease. There's even studies showing that just testing to see how inflamed your gut is a better indicator of heart disease. So yes, hey JR, what's up? Adrienne, some friends on, awesome. Hey Katrina. So yeah, so there's all this data that is available to us as scientists that's just not making it into your everyday medicine, right? And so what's the consequence of that is, for decades, heart disease has killed 1 out of 4 people. It hasn't really changed, right? That means whatever is being done by the masses isn't working, right? And so in cancer, incidence actually is still rising, right? And so the recent data shows 1 out of 2 men, right? So some of you guys that are watching this, you have a 50% chance of cancer. If you're a girl watching this, you have a 33% chance of cancer, right? And these are the data. This is what's going on. And so we do know that what's happening and what's being available, what the masses are doing, is just simply not working, right? And so it's part of our mission, right, is to try to change this, right? And so, here's what I see, right? People know that most people who are intelligent, who are watching this, all of you are, I can see, know that there's something wrong with the system. And so you're trying to operate outside of that system, right? Like you're taking supplements, you're possibly doing keto, doing eating plans or intermittent fasting and different plans. However, I love some of Naveen Jain's posts on the bacteria, right? So there's all kinds of data showing that some of these very popular diet plans that do get you lean actually creates more inflammation in your body, right? And so if you've seen any of my previous videos in the last year or two, you know that systemic inflammation, like chronic elevated levels of inflammation, is the root cause, the main root cause of most illnesses, right? Like Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, dementia, Parkinson's, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, so on and so forth, right? And so it's why you see people that like exercise a lot, they're like ripped, they're jacked, they're muscle, they look healthy, but boom, they get cancer and they get heart attacks, right? Because how lean you are really is not a good indicator of how healthy you are. This is huge. People think just being lean, low body fat equals health. It does not equal health, right? For sure, if you're obese in general, you're going to be less healthy, but being lean really doesn't guarantee you safety from illness, right? And so there's something else going on, and that's systemic inflammation. And so we're starting to see data, like we've tested people and it says genetically, this person's liver cannot tolerate more than 22 grams of fat a day, right? So there's like genetic tests that can show you this. Imagine that person trying to go on keto, right? May not be a good idea, and it wasn't for this person, which is why that person felt horrible. And so there's all this data showing what can be customized in a human. And so once you understand that things can be customized to an individual, then really at that point you kind of realize like no generic stuff is really helpful, right? That's why sometimes when I get advice on, hey, should I go on this diet? Should I eat this food? Is that it's difficult for me to answer because we don't know, right? Like celery juice may actually be wrecking your body, right? Because celery might be a pro-inflammatory food for you. So when you drink that in the morning on your empty stomach, trying to clean out your liver, it actually can be causing you harm. Right? We've tested people who are very sensitive to ginger and turmeric, two known anti-inflammatory foods that actually unique to their cells causes inflammation. This is a great example. Once you see that, you can no longer just be like, hey, everyone take blank, right? Because it doesn't fit everyone. And so be careful when you're listening to a podcast and listening to, we'll call influencers in the health space that know that everything now can be tested and customized to you. That is the future, right? The future, I see the future is eventually in like 5 to 10 years, we're just gonna have our wearables that's either on us or most likely in us that is actually giving us all the data about our health that's customized to us. It's one of the ways we're gonna live much longer. But between now and then, there's a gap. There's a gap in how we can collect that data, right? Because we need the data, right? Everything needs to be customized these days. And there's a great TED Talks about how they predict in the future because our cell phone is tracking, obviously, geolocation and knows where we are. When you go to the doctor, they're going to download the information and know, based on where you've traveled, what are the toxins in those areas. And then we need that data to kind of figure out what are the toxins you may have picked up in your body that then have disrupted your hormones and your cells and your DNA, right? This is just all data-driven science. Everything's going through data, right? So more and more data is better, right? And so again, right now, in order to collect the data unique to an individual, it is a very, expensive investment process, right? There's no other way to put it because we need a lot of data to figure people out. And so, over the last many months, what we used to like send kits to entrepreneurs. Most of my friends are amazing entrepreneurs. And what we find is that a lot of times it's literally like herding cats, right? So like we'll call and be like, hey, we don't have the data yet. Why? And I'll get an answer, something along the lines of like, hey, I'm actually looking at the kit you sent me 4 or 5 months ago. I just need to still collect that data, right? And so what we're doing at the Healing House back in San Diego is essentially we realized like, what if we just picked a time and a space where a lot of our people in our tribe are going to be, which is obviously Traffic and Conversion Summit, huge. And we basically just made it available where like we can collect all the data there on site, right? So this way you don't have to like go to different labs and get different fluids sucked out of your body because we do it all, basically most of it at once, right? And so, we may not be able to do like the stool sample on site because I'm not going to make you poop on demand. That would be interesting, but may not be enjoyable. And so, but most of the other fluids we'll be able to collect on site, right? And so that's what we're gonna do. So at the Healing House in San Diego, what we're gonna do is, I'm thinking I'll probably have like sessions where you can come and basically we'll talk through your health. Like if you have any symptoms, anything that you're experiencing, just by talking through the symptoms, a lot of times we can already start to figure out what is the ideal game plan to actually reverse that, right? To find the root cause, to get rid of it, so you never have those symptoms, right? And so many of you, how many of you on that you're watching, if you're currently taking any medication, just say like yes, or I'm taking medications. That would be interesting to kind of hear that, right? And some of you, interestingly, if you're not taking medication, let's say you're taking supplements designed to we'll call it affect your physiology, affect your body. Comment on, with supplements, you can feel free to type in what you're taking. It'd be really interesting to see who's taking what. right? And so, yeah, for sure, yep, simple things to treat like thyroid. Thyroid is actually a very interesting thing. So, in the last 15 years, thyroid cancer has increased by 289%, right? It's almost tripled in the last 15 years. And so, thyroid function, when you go to your doctor, right, like they go, oh, your thyroid's high or it's low, and obviously they'll give you some kind of medication for it typically. And what they're not looking at is like, what are the hormones that release thyroid are doing? What are the nutrients, right? A handful of nutrients that it takes to make the hormones that make the thyroid hormone. What are they doing? Or what is the other hormone that binds your thyroid and makes it inactive, right? What's that nutrient chemical? What's that? How much of that is in your body, right? And so many variables that go into thyroid function that your traditional doctor basically just doesn't look at, right? And so thyroid is a pretty easy thing to completely reverse and get people off medications. They're just not looking at like it. Just once you talk through it, like it sounds almost simplistic. Like yeah, if these three things are ingredients are needed to make the thyroid, let's see how much of those three things are. Oh yeah, this thing blocks thyroid. Let's see how much of that. Oh, and by the way, each one of those things actually requires other nutrients to make. Let's see if you have any of those that's missing, right? Once we have all of that, we can basically figure out, okay, is there a recipe issue? Is there a lack of resources issue? Or it could be gut, right? So we also look at gut function as well. We look at your sleep, because any of those disturbances will then, of course, affect the central system that then dictates the release of your hormones, right? And so once we look at all that data and we have all those data points, we basically can go, oh, this is off, and this mix is off. We restored those, and then you're basically, well, I won't say the C word, right? The FDA would not like that. Basically, we will find the root cause, get rid of the root cause, and therefore you don't need the drugs anymore, right? We'll just say it that way. It is actually not that hard, right? And so, and a lot of that also involves, again, going deeper into what are your current frames of reality, stories, beliefs, whatever you want to call it, and then environmental, right? Like I said, like literally particulate matter is huge for health that is not being measured and talked about, right? And so again, we'll probably have some sessions. You know, I'll make the schedule available for people to register and come. Maybe I'm thinking like maybe that first Monday we'll have a few slots, right? We can have maybe 8 to 10 people per slot, and basically you can come and then talk through your medical history, and we can already start to figure out, well, like what's the ideal game plan to basically get rid of all the symptoms. And then even if you don't have really any symptoms, if you're like, I basically just want to live a lot longer, like my goal I've shared with a lot of you is 150 years old, and that's not like a wish. That's like, to me, it's actually a very conservative goal, right? And so really at this, I mean, I said that like 23 years ago based on reading research. So at this point, I can probably update that to much more, but 300 just sounds too unbelievable. So 150 is super conservative, because we're seeing the science, that can make this possible, right? I might have mentioned, just to give you a little, this is a little tip and trick, but I just want to sort of let you know what you don't know. Like literally, there's research showing that they gave mice water infused with hydrogen, really simple. It increased the lifespan by 91%, right? So there's some pretty amazing things that's available with technology and science that's readily available that, again, just the masses are unaware of. I actually truly believe that in 3 to 5 years, as this technology that's widely available now becomes popular, I guarantee you the FDA is going to come in and like make it illegal. It's like too good, right? It's like too good for you. And they have a long history of taking things away that are too healthy for people, right? And so in the healing house, right? So first day we'll probably do mostly, we'll call it case-specific question answering. And then on the second day, you can just come in and we can collect all the data, right? We draw the blood, assess your body. We even have technologies that you could put your hand on. So one machine literally can immediately tell what's the antioxidant levels in your body, right? And why is this important? Well, antioxidants fight oxidation, and oxidation causes cellular damage. It's like your insides rusting. And that basically also is a pathway that leads to cancer, inflammation, and disease, right? So we can basically measure, like, essentially, like, are you eating, and really I should word it as, are you absorbing enough fruits and vegetables, right? Because we've tested people here, we've scanned people that eat a good amount of fruits and vegetables, and yet their antioxidant levels are extremely low. Easy indicator that there is an absorption issue, right? So we can literally, without doing expensive gut tests and all that stuff, we can already see, right? If you're putting like 8 things in and you're only absorbing 2 things, obviously there's an absorption issue, right? So we can test your antioxidant directly. We also have technology where you put your hand on and we can scan the energetic self, right? It's almost like seeing you through an energy worker's eyes, like a Reiki practitioner or an acupuncturist, right? They're working with your meridians and energy flow. So science is pretty advanced these days. We can actually measure, are there energetic imbalances throughout your body? And then we can tell you how to restore that. Right, so we're looking at your body not only just from a chemical perspective, but from an energetic perspective. And then we'll look at your body from a mechanical perspective, right? Moving like a robot. And so, you can have weaknesses and tightnesses, and that all affects the self, right? And so to me, holistic is treating the whole person, right? We don't divide people into sections, right? Everything is just a different frame of reality, right? So it's not like you have a mind and you have a body and you have a spirit. It's all you, just looking at it from different frames of reality or different perspectives, right? Because sometimes, the holistic world, we're worded as, we treat mind, body, and spirit. Already they've divided you into multiple parts. Really, the way I look at it, if I'm doing this for like 26 years, is it's all related, just you, right? So we will look at all of you and from every perspective. And so that comes from a mechanical perspective. We look at you from an energetic perspective. We look at you from a chemical perspective. We will also, depends on how deep you want to go, we'll probably talk about, we'll call it psychology or belief system perspective. It just reminds me, earlier I was just telling a patient that her 7-year-old self had some experiences with her mom. Yeah, so if you want to go deep, we can talk about some deeper stuff. So we'll just say maybe I'll word that as from a shamanism perspective, right? Looking at, are there previous experiences in your lives that have imprinted a certain vibration in you that currently no longer serves you? So all that too, if you want to talk about that. So from all those perspectives, because to me, they're just different perspectives in looking at you that all work together to affect healing. And to me, that's the future. Because it's silly to just look at you from a chemical perspective, right? That doesn't make sense. Like when you go and do traditional medicine, they're only looking at you from a chemical perspective, right? When you go to a doctor, look at the blood chemistry, right? They don't really talk about behaviors and all that stuff. You would go and see like a psychologist for that, right? And so then that's looking at you from a mental perspective. And so to me, true healing is looking at you from all perspectives, right? So we're going to make that available essentially at the Healing House in San Diego. And so, so I have an event page which I created, and so you can kind of go there. And later on today, I'm going to sort of update the schedule. I think really on Monday, I would love to just to have people be able to come and just kind of sit down. We can just talk about you, right? Like, get to know you, what are your health things, health goals, health issues, health, we call it obstacles into opportunities, right? So essentially, what are things that you're currently like, it's like a little speed bump in life, and how do you, instead of like, oh, I got this speed bump, how do you like ramp off that speed bump and have fun flying in the air and go, oh my God, this view, I've never seen this view before. I just learned that, oh my God, that tree is amazing. I learned that I actually enjoy flying in the air. I actually love the wind and how it feels, right? So let's take those obstacles and turn them into opportunities. And so, so if you're interested, basically, message me, go to the Facebook event page that I have. I would just love to really make available like what I've known, and Dr. Heather, some of you have met, what we've been sort of studying and working on for like decades, right? It's just so valuable in helping humans be able to have better access to better healing and better well-being, right? Because to me, we do a lot to accomplish things, right? So most of my friends are amazing at accomplishing things, but I feel like if we're doing all that, sometimes at the expense of self, like what's the lesson? Like I'm most, very in tune to like, what's the practice, right? It's really the thing that we're doing is not the most important thing. The approach and how we're doing it, like what's the practice in which we're accomplishing the thing, is actually the meaningful thing, right? Because that's what people observe. Right? I'll give it, if that's a little too foo-foo and nebulous, I'll give an example, right? We'll use a very typical entrepreneurial example. I want to make seven figures, right? I want to make $1 million, right? And so, as an exaggerated example, let's say you're like, I lie, cheat, and steal, and rip people off, and I make $1 million. Obviously, that is a very different $1 million than I really impacted lives and changed their lives for the better to make the million, right? So that's an example of the energy and the path in which we take. $1 million isn't the thing. At the end of that, both people get the $1 million. I guarantee you, I would assume that the person that did it through kindness and helping humans probably has a different practice and a different life versus the person that did it through, we'll call it lying and cheating, right? Those are very extreme examples, but there's many bazillion layers of subtleties in that. And so basically that was a very long, example of how we're doing things. Like we're so busy doing how we're doing it, and the energy in which we're bringing our actions is actually the most important thing, right? Because that energy that we're bringing to the action is what's being broadcasted into the universe, right? And so, and it's affecting everyone around you. If you have family, it's affecting your family members. I have so many patients I've treated where they themselves have this hyper vigilance about them, constant stress. And then when I ask them about their family, they're like, oh yeah, my kids all have gastrointestinal problems and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, it's weird because, my parents didn't have GI problems. And mainly because a lot of times they don't realize that the energy in which you're bringing into their household is actually affecting everyone else in the household, right? Because that's not taught. That's not like a thing in mainstream media, but absolutely it is a scientific thing. We can basically quantify those things now, right? And so, yep. So to me, it's all about like the energy in which we're bringing to our lives. If you have a business, how we're approaching our business, right? And so one of our goals is to not only get people to be healthier, but how do we support you in bringing this sort of self-love way of achieving what you define as success, right? And so I feel like there's a multiple ripple effects of achieving success through this loving, nurturing way and not the sacrifice grind way. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's never a time for some sacrifice and some hard work and, some like maybe you're not sleeping sometimes, but the overall strategy, right? So, everything's in rhythms. The overall strategy and intent is through self-love, right? And so to me, that is really the ultimate goal, right? So I'd love to kind of, and if you know anyone that can, benefit from this, if you know someone that's just maybe they're feeling a little bit frustrated about their health, maybe they're taking medications and they kind of want to get off the medications, but they don't know that they can get off medications, feel free to tag them, connect me to them. I would love to have a discussion with them, mainly because, it's like people don't know what they don't know. It is possible that some people don't realize that the medical system is, in fact, not designed for their benefit, right? It's really designed for the drug company's benefits. And some people don't know that, right? They might think like, hey, I'm supposed to be on this medication for the rest of my life. It's always silly when I hear people say my blood pressure is under control, I'm taking medications for it. Well, that may not be control, right? I guess it's a form of control if you use a pill to control it, but ultimately, what's like the root cause, like the behavior that's causing the high blood pressure is probably going to rear its ugly head and manifest other things besides just high blood pressure, right? And so we want to kind of nurture this self and unearth what is that hidden thing that the doctors have not helped unearth, and then like pluck that and then go, hey, I no longer need this in my life, right? So if you know anyone that sort of fits that description, feel free to tag them, because again, it's our mission right now is to be able to help, especially entrepreneurs, change their mindset and go, oh my God, wait, you can get rid of illnesses without drugs and be healthy your whole life and actually feel amazing and sleep amazing and not have like brain fog and not have afternoon fatigue. Yes, all that is possible, right? In some cases, it's more complex. Some cases requires a lot of, we'll call it behavioral modification for sure, but it is possible. And the reason we're targeting entrepreneurs is because, entrepreneurs have your tribe, like your team, your friends, your community. And so the way I see it is just a ripple effect, right? So we want to affect these entrepreneurs to be able to make this shift in how they perceive self and health and well-being. And then over time, we're basically building something that will be able to make this available for the masses. Right? So, but our initial superheroes we're relying on are the entrepreneurs, right? So they're the ones that we're targeting right now to cast this ripple effect, right? And so would love to kind of hear from you. Join us at the Healing House in San Diego. Again, there's an event page. I haven't invited anyone. Maybe I'll go do that today. And I'm sure you can find it on my wall somewhere. And if you know anyone that fits, this, right, that wants to be healthy, that wants to get off medications, or you just basically you want to not die from illnesses, feel free to tag them. I would love to kind of sit down and kind of map out and help them understand what is the process, right? Instead of chasing a bunch of tips and tricks, let me try this supplement and this diet. Let's just customize it and find out what is the ideal process for you, right? So, hey James, if you're going to be on TNC, that would be awesome. Anyway, so I will come back and answer some questions. Right, I'm sure later on people have some questions or comments as they're watching this. So I will man the chat lines for the next, at least a couple of hours, and I'll talk to you all soon.
but